What is going on, YouTube? This is the Alphonsus D Gradelock here, back with another deck profile, this time in V Premium, featuring none other than, you introduce yourself.
Hey, what's up? My name's Akeem.
Alright, awesome. We got ourselves a top 8 deck profile featuring none other than Tachikaze, but which Tachikaze build do we have today?
I can give you a hint. It doesn't have raptors.
Oh! Okay then, so I guess we get started with the deck profile real quick. So what do we got?
Alright, well, obviously, every deck, you're going to need a runner. I personally love minimum Carno.
Okay. Nice.
Everyone should know what the runner does, but for those of you that don't, when you ride it, you draw a card, and if your opponent's at grade 1 when you ride it, you get yourself a quick shield.
Alrighty.
I'm going to pop them off to the side. We're going to start off with the triggers, because those are grade 0s.
Okay.
We got 4 heal triggers, not
Yes.
heal guardians. Because personally, I like the heal guardians because they help prevent me from getting rushed down. But there are situations later on in the game where that extra 5k matters. And once I get to grade 3, all they are is a 15k shield, whereas this is just consistently a 20k shield. So I do suffer a little bit from the, if I get rushed, I am going to get boned, but this does help later on in the game where if I struggle to actually get the kill.
Okay, alright, interesting.
Next trigger we're going to be running is we actually run a 50-50 split afterwards of fronts, which I run 6 fronts.
6 fronts, alright.
And then we do 6 crits.
Oh!
We don't run PGs in this because in this deck I know I need a lot of my pieces in my hands so I can go in for rushing. And the PG, again, does help. But I just like the 30k shield because it's just a 30k on its own, and it's just very consistent just by that. It's just one card that stops big attacks, which all I really need to do is block bigger attacks early on, which is why I like the 30k from this and the 20k from the heal. The crits are for just getting a little bit of extra damage, and the fronts are here because in this deck, you typically swing maybe 1 or 2 times with rear guards, kill them off, and then swing with the vanguard, leaving your front row relatively open. So the fronts will be readily and available for everyone there, and you have crits for maybe if they decide to say no guard.
Okay. Alright. And Sentinel crits. That's it.
The big boy shields. They come
I like
in
it, yeah. They can. Alright.
Moving up to the grade 1.
Alright, so we have
Darting Dragon Blue Sprint. I gotta remember if this one was the Darting Dragon or the full speed one, because for some reason they got a weird name change with one of the reprints, but I just call them Blue Sprint. So we got Blue Sprint here. Blue Sprint's effect is when he attacks, when he attacks on Vanguard or Rearguard, you may take the top card of your deck and put it down for an equip gauge for one of your rearguards, including himself. And when he's retired during your turn by your card ability, you may call one of his gauges out to rearguard. So he is your typical booster every so often, or if you have him on an Excel marker, he's either going to, typically when I play him on an Excel marker, if he's on Excel 2, he's at least a 18. He can go up to, if he's on Excel 1 with a gauge, he goes up to 28. So he can go from like 18 to 28 if he's on a marker, making him a viable attacker. As well as, like I said, he gives himself gauges so you can call more things. So when he dies with a gauge, you call something new. Next grade 1 is Savage Shooter. This is the Vanguard, or this is the card I like to ride as my starting Vanguard more often than not, because its ability is when placed on Vanguard, Soul Blast 1, draw a card, call a card from your hand, and then you gauge that card, which makes it great for calling down cards of higher grade, so you can get that surprise extra attack. So if you go second, you can say, ride him, get an additional draw, call a card from your hand, say something like Blue Sprint, but with his effect, you can call something like Mega Rex, or you can call Spino Extort, or Death Rex, or some bigger rear guard that can kill Blue Sprint by your card effect, and you can continue going with the aggression on turn 2. On turn 1, he's just an extra draw for a Soul Blast, which in this deck, you don't really use Soul, you basically only use Counter Blast every so often. So essentially a free draw and a call for virtually nothing for this deck.
Alright.
And then last grade 1 that we run are Prism Birds, the grade 1, grade 3 searcher that if a gauge goes down at some point during your turn, it gets +5, making it a 13k booster or 13k attacker. And its ability, when placed, check the top 5, look for a grade 3, add it to your hand. If you add one, discard one. Moving on to grade 2s.
Okay.
We are running 2 Zealous Horn Dragon Dilopho Pyros. Dilopho Pyro is amazing. I love him because when placed from your hand, counterblast 1, draw a card, call a card, much like Savage Shooter's ability, except this one can be on Vanguard or Rearguard when it activates that effect. It also has the second effect that says when it's called out from the equip gauge, it gets +10 for the end of the turn, which is nutty for getting those last sudden or last surprise attacks on opponents where they have no more hand, you need one more attack. You can superior call them out from the gauge using a couple of cards in this deck. Blue Sprint, Spino Extort, for example, can call them out from the gauges, and he makes these last-ditch punches for 19k, 29k, and it's devastating if they connect, especially if you can put him on an Excel 1. So if he gets a gauge on Excel 1, called out from his ability, he's a 39 on his own, no trigger effects, which that is merciless to guard. We only need 2 of him because with the help of Shooter, being able to recycle cards from our drop by resting it and putting cards as an equip gauge for other units that don't have gauges, we can take him from the drop and use him again next turn. So we can call him out, use him to intercept, or attack, use him to intercept, and he goes to drop. Savage Shooter would come into play, put him out as an equip gauge for someone else, and he can just keep coming back again and again. So he's got some good long-term value on him. Next we run Regiodon Dragon, which Regiodon is plain and simply the grade 2 version of Blue Sprint. It is verbatim the same exact effect.
Okay.
When you attack with it, you can give your rearguard a gauge, and when it dies by your card effect during your turn, you call out one of its equip gauges. The only difference between it is that this is a 9k grade 2 with 5k shield, whereas Blue Sprint is a grade 1 with 10k shield and 8k attack.
Consistent engine, the exact same text. Alright.
We got another grade 2 for a third grade 2, which is Extortion Dragon Spino Extort. Extortion Dragon is nice because I love him for combos where he says when he attacks, counterblast 1, retire one of your rear guards, draw a card, call out that rear guard's equip gauge that you retired as a unit, and give that card you called an equip gauge of its own. So a nice little thing I like to do with him is if I have Regiodon or if I have Blue Sprint, I like to give them 2 equip gauges because if he gets 1 gauge from his own ability and he gets another gauge from someone else's ability, I can use Extortion Dragon to attack, counterblast 1, retire my Regiodon. Now, because Regiodon is retired, he's going to call out one of Regiodon's gauges and mandatorily gauge it, and Regiodon will call out one of his gauges of his own. I can optionally gauge with Regiodon, although more often than not, I probably will be giving that unit a gauge. And I just called out 2 new cards with equip gauges in one effect for a cost of a counter black. And it is amazing because I can use that to reset a column, I can get 2 front row attackers, and all it essentially cost me was just 2 cards. And then our last grade 2 is Old Reliable himself, Megarex. Megarex has been in this deck since day 1, and I don't see him leaving any Itachi deck relatively soon because he's when he attacks, retire one of your rear guards, draw a card. Free effect, no cost. Just retire one of your rear guards, congrats, you got something. The effect that you have to pay for him is when you decide to attack with him, you can counterblast 1 to give him an equip gauge. Then for each equip gauge he has on him at that time, he gets an additional +5 attack till the end of the battle, not the turn. So he can boost himself up in power to make an extra attack successfully hit. He can give himself a gauge, which stacks with Gaia's power ability. And more importantly, he retires our rear guards. He draws us our cards. He replaces rear guards we lose and helps call out new ones. moving on to grade 3s. We have Light Battle Dragon, Gigano Blazer.
Oh.
We run 3 of Gigano Blazer, primarily as the first Vanguard that we ride, or first grade 3 Vanguard that we want to ride. During our turn, if 3 or more equip gauges are placed, our front row gets a continuous +5. So the units on it at the time don't get +5. It's anyone who goes on the front row at any point during our turn after that threshold of 3 gauges gets +5. So we can call out new units, they'll get it. All of our old units, they'll have it. His act phase, once per turn, Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1. Draw 2 cards, call 2 cards from your hand, and then you may gauge those 2 cards that you called. This helps him to get to that 3 gauge threshold, which in this deck, that's not that hard to reach. The reason I love him is because he draws the pieces. He gets the combo cards that I need to get a menacing board that can potentially hit up to 6 or 7 times in one good turn. So with that alone, it's really nice. With him putting on that extra 5k, that's even better because that makes him something of a budget version of our second grade 3 and our big boy, Gaia Emperor.
Gaia!
Gaia's ability says, during our turn, any unit with an equip gauge gets +5 power. If your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, they get +10k instead of the +5. When he attacks, you may counterblast 1, retire 1 of your rear guards, gain its original power, and if your opponent's at grade 3, gain their original critical. Very plain, simple effect, but it's Tachikaze's. They're a very rearguard based deck. Having rear guards that can essentially sit with a 10k from no trigger is beautiful to see, because I can see my opponent having a grade 3 Vanguard. If I have, theoretically speaking, my Regiodon, and he has himself an equip gauge, doesn't really matter what it is, he'll have himself a 10k from Gaia's ability. If he's on an Excel 1, he gets another 10k, making him a 29. And if I hit a front trigger, that's 39. That's crazy.
Yep.
It's great because Gaia loves to make all the rear guards big, strong, hard to guard, and makes it super easy for you to hit with just a very simplistic effect, which is what I love. Just he helps to kill those rear guards, which is what you need in the deck. You need these rear guards dead so you can proc their abilities, so you can call new things, draw new cards, and just keep hitting at your opponent with all these multi-attacks and superior calls that it just drains them of their hand or just takes them out.
All right, well, that's a lot of equip gauges, a lot of power gain, and just
Oh yeah,
that explosive turn 3. So I guess after the deck profile, how are your rounds actually? Do you happen to have a round breakdown?
I do. If you'll give me but one moment.
All right, because right now you have your 6 rounds and then your top 8 match.
Yeah. So for my round 1, I had I unfortunately lost to Melody.
Okay.
Round 2, I fought Shiryuki and won.
Okay.
Round 3, Sanctuary Guard, I lost. 4 was Battle Sisters, I won.
Okay.
The 5th round was against Military Dragons, in which I won. The 6th round was Nightmare Dolls, in which I also won. And then my last round, which was top 8, where I lost to Gurgawit.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you for the round breakdowns. I'll be sure to edit in the photos so you get to see what those photos look like, including with the appropriate sound effects. But Hakeem, thank you so much for your time. Congrats again for your top 8 with Gaia. Feel free to comment down below in case you have any thoughts, suggestions, comments about the deck profile. And that is it. That's it for Hakeem. And Alphonsus D, Gradelock signing out. Peace, guys. Have a good one. Woo!